You're watching once again a YouTube video presentation of the University of Wyoming Center on Aging. I'm Scott Veach. I'm your host, and on this program we'll be discussing topics of interest for caregivers of loved ones with dementia. We hope that you will subscribe to the channel and you'll hit that thumbs up like button. Both of those actions help the channel to grow and allow us to reach more people. And if you'll tap that notification bell, you'll be alerted each time we upload a new program. And now, this is Once Again. This is part two of Once Again, an edition that we are conducting with Theresa Robinett. She is an occupational therapist. She teaches at Casper College, and she also has a background in dementia care. Theresa and I are both support staff members of Wyoming Dementia Together, a group that operates under the University of Wyoming Center on Aging. If you haven't caught part one, we encourage you to go back and take a look at that. We were talking about how smartphones can help the caregiver. We also talked about the use of Chat GPT and Meta glasses, some really good stuff in part one. So if you haven't had a chance to check that out, we invite you to do that. Theresa, thanks again for sticking around for part two with us. We left off last time. We were talking about Meta glasses. There's something that you talked about in a presentation a couple of months ago, MetaQuest VR, virtual reality, and the way that that can be used in a skilled nursing facility. What exactly is that?
So that's been just kind of a fun project that we've been doing here at Casper College. My students took this on a year ago, and we partnered with a local nursing home here in Casper and Natrona County Public Library. So Natrona County Public Library bought two of these MetaQuest VR headsets about a year ago or so, and they're available to check out. Anyone that lives here in Natrona County can borrow these headsets and so they were kind of looking for an outlet and how to get this. And then there was two volunteers at this facility that wanted to bring a really unique activity to the residents, but just needed some help getting it off the ground. And so luckily my students, they just said yes. And they said, we'll figure it out as we go. And so we partnered with the activities professionals there, kind of picking and matching people, that we thought would respond really well to it. And frankly, it has exceeded all expectations. It has gone incredibly well. The residents have responded very, very well to all the scenarios. I was kind of worried as an OT about things like vertigo or dizziness or things like that.
Oh, yeah.
We've really not, we haven't, I mean, we've been doing this over a year now, and we really haven't encountered any of that. But so essentially what happens is folks put on these Meta VR headsets, if people have seen them, and it kind of closes off all your vision. And it's like you're in this immersive experience. So when you look up, you look down, you look around, you're in here, you're in Casper, Wyoming, but when you're in one of these 360 VR experiences, it's like you're out on a boat. It's like you're walking through the streets of Paris. It's like you're riding a roller coaster. And it has just been a very rich experience for a lot of folks. We do tours of places, we do trips, we do experiences. We have some thrill seekers that are always wanting to jump out of planes or do motorcycle racing. There's some flight simulators that's been really great for some of our veterans and things like that. We've done a few games. There's some sports, there's some fitness, but anyway, it's just kind of unlocking a whole world. And then also I found too, so not only are folks just enjoying this experience as like an enhanced leisure experience, it's also improving. We see improved mood. I see improved mobility, head, neck, trunk mobility, upper extremities. I'm also hearing things like, more engagement, some recall. It's pretty funny when we hear somebody say, "Hey, I went on an African safari," and they're telling their family members about it, and they're
Yeah.
they're kind of wondering. But it's just stimulating conversation in ways that I don't think would be otherwise. So yeah, so if you're kind of wondering, or as a caregiver, and you're just kind of struggling maybe to think of some different leisure activities for your loved one, this VR thing that's taken off could be really, really cool and immersive and really an enriching experience when people do it.
Right. Have they talked about what might be in store in the future, how this may advance, or what may be next, how it might be improved or enhanced a couple of years from now?
I'm not 100% sure. I have seen more talk about Um, I've seen a few things like doing VR live, like joining like a
Oh,
live sporting event, or things like that. I think as the technology just continues to get better. I remember the first time I put on a VR headset, 10 years ago, it was just kind of this little thing you put on and it was not really very pleasant. Now these new headsets it's very pleasant. They're very nice to wear. They're not too over the top. It's not this like kind of it's not disorienting, if that makes sense at
uh-huh.
all. So I think the experience is probably just going to keep getting better and the technology is just going to become more and more accessible, more mainstream.
One of the other things that you talked about in the presentation that you made last October, in October of 2025, limitless AI, some technology that is, I guess, just coming about, just emerging.
Yeah, this was something I just stumbled on when I was researching for the presentation. And so I haven't had the chance to interact with it like some of the other technology that we've talked about, but I think it's interesting. And so Limitless AI is a pendant that an individual could wear. It just clips onto your clothing, and essentially it keeps track of conversations and it'll summarize the day events and it'll create reminders automatically. So think of it like how ChatGPT or how we talked about does that personal assistant. This one really, I think, is trying to be like that personal assistant in the room with you and help you keep track of things. So that could be really helpful. Like we were talking before, though. So I think when we did the presentation in October, it was still available. Well, since then, in my research, I found that Meta now has purchased Limitless AI. So they're not actually selling any of the new hardware, but I would imagine here probably in the next few months, they're going to probably bring this on, put their own twist on it, and maybe make it even more accessible or mainstream. So that's one that I think is going to keep coming about, but then is also maybe on a little bit of hold for right now until that materializes.
Hmm. You also talked about something called New Days AI that I had never heard of. What is that?
Yeah, yeah. So New Days, so several years ago, there was a study that came out using this, what we call the iConnect platform. And so the iConnect study was a really well done study with many participants where essentially they used internet-based conversations for folks that were socially
Mm.
isolated. And they had an experimental group, they had a control group, kind of classic research study. And folks showed that they did better. Well, they both did well. So both the in-person group and the virtual group, they did well with just chatting. And so it really kind of gave some merit to the fact that, these internet-based conversations could also be a viable recess. So yeah, so when I was researching this a little bit, New Days offers kind of these video visits with a real and licensed person, right? A real person. But then they kind of give that person like almost like if you would say like homework, where they would then interact with that AI companion, where that AI companion asks really specific questions and folks pay a subscription for that. So I thought that was really interesting. And I especially think about our folks here in Wyoming that maybe, they're not only just isolated, in one way, but then also just, having that conversation that's going to be beneficial for that individual could be an even more challenging thing. So just anyone that's a little more isolated, I think that could be a really, really interesting tool.
One of the things that you mentioned also is something called Joy for All Pets, uh, robotic companions. Wow, we're really getting out there now, Teresa. What's all that about?
Yeah. So they seem and sound so weird, right? Until you actually interact with one. So we
Have
have
you done that? Have you
yeah,
actually seen?
yeah,
Wow.
we
Wow.
have. So years ago, so Wyoming Assistive Tech Resources there in Laramie, they bought a cat and they sent it to us. And I was skeptical too. I was very skeptical. I was
Yeah,
like, what is this thing?
me
Until
too.
I got it out of the box and it meowed and it purred and it talked to me and it did all these cute little things and it just yeah, I was hooked right from the get-go. So I know on the surface when you're just talking about like who wants a robot cat or robot,
Yeah.
but they really are they really are kind of fun. And so we bought several of those. The student club did after we had interaction with them and we donated them. And we probably should have followed up on how they were received, but just us in our department, we really enjoyed the robot, the
Yeah.
robot. And for a lot of our folks with dementia, we always talk about like living in their reality, right? And I feel like
Yes.
one of these pets could do that without kind of the burden of a real animal. Because it's very calming to sit there and hold a cat, hold a dog, pet it, but then you don't have all the who's going to take this dog out? Who's going to clean the litter box?
Right, right.
You know,
Do
our,
they feel lifelike?
yeah, yeah, they're pretty heavy. They're a little more
Wow.
rigid than obviously than a,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
yeah, like to sit on your lap and pet, and they kind of will move. And then if you scratch, they'll react to it. If you rub their tummy, they react to it. So
Wow.
yeah, me personally, I enjoy the, the
Yeah.
robotic
So,
pet. Mhm.
something else I thought that that we've heard about for a while, but I thought can be really helpful for the caregiver. You talked about remote monitoring. How is that advanced? What are we talking about now?
Yeah, so we've come a long ways, I feel like, from just the days of like the pendant, right? The smart home, the pendants. We're moving more into those still exist, right? The still the emergency alert bracelets, the those all still exist. But yeah, a lot of our smartphones, like our built-in Apple, they're not quite as good as the actual devices that are built for in-home safety and things like that. Um, but yeah, that's still a big, a medical alert system. Those are still very popular and very successful. But even just our smartwatches, things like that, that might work for a loved one, setting that up where they could make phone calls, where it'll alert you what's going on. They can even set those up for some medical alert information. So like if something happens, it'll help give that person that emergency contact and information. But kind of the big um, stuff that I'm finding and the conversations that I'm having with folks, and where some things are heading is like radar technology for in-home, for in-home remote monitoring. We're kind of, I think still, if folks want to do like cameras or sensors or ring doorbells or things like that, that's still very much accessible. But radar is becoming a really interesting technology where then you could set a radar device up in somebody's home, and then there'd be a much less issue of things like privacy and dignity and things like that, because the radar is just monitoring movement. It's looking for patterns. It's looking for different things like that without maybe being as intrusive as somebody might view like a camera or things like that. And it could still give that loved one, hey, when I'm out of the house or when I'm away, it can still give you some peace of mind about maybe what's going on, and making sure your loved one's just home safe. So
Right, right. Before we began recording today, you and I were talking about the future and and how we have come so far just in the last 3, 4, 5 years with all of this technology. When you think about it going forward another 3, 4, 5 years, what do you think the possibilities are? Do you ever wonder about that?
here, just a sec. Can we pause real quick, Scott? Sorry.
Sure.
Okay. Sorry, Billy. Yeah, yeah, sorry. No, you're good. I'm just recording it. But did you get set up on Missy's? What was what's the?
I should just start with the question again. Okay.
Okay.
I can come back.
Okay, I'll be done probably like 10 minutes. Okay, perfect. Thanks, Daniel. Sorry, IT was here to work on my computer.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, so I'll just come back and do you need a countdown or anything, or do you need
Um,
to? I mean, I'm talking to
Oh,
Tyler.
no.
We're good. Okay. All right. I'll just start with the question and we'll come back again. All right. Here we go. You and I were talking before we began recording about all the advancements that have taken place in technology just in the last 3, 4, 5 years. And it makes me wonder what what's ahead? What could we be talking about 3, 4, 5 years from now? What do you think?
I don't know. I wish I did know. If I did know, oh my goodness, I could, probably pivot to a different
Buy stock.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But it's I think kind of an exciting time to think about things. Hopefully, I hope some of our caregivers are feeling empowered that there's some technology that's coming out that's on their side. I think there's a big push just in all across the world about people's quality of life. right? And I really feel like as we move forward in society and we think about these things, we just don't lose our compassion for how to leverage these things to make someone's quality of life a little bit better. And that's where I see the technology moving. And that's how I feel like AI has impacted my life personally within the last years. I feel like I can be much more intentional with my time because of some of the things that I can hand off to AI. And so I think that's going to be a big direction that we just see things going is just being more aware of, this is the time I want to spend. This is the time I want to spend doing these things and these other things. If I can let technology do it, if I can kind of offload that a little bit, I hope our caregivers can start to feel a little more comfortable doing that and being okay with that too. That can be a hard transition. I'm also very excited though, and I just hear this in the news about how they're using AI to not necessarily, we're always talking about like AI, like generating, all this stuff, but also how we're using AI and some of this technology to research, right? To get through these bodies of knowledge. And they're using like the agentic AI to look at medications, to look at conditions, to do identify things earlier. And so I can't help but think we're heading in a direction where we're going to have a lot of information, and hopefully as humans we can just use that, but then still really value our humanity, in the background. So no, I wish I could say, but I feel very optimistic about how this technology is going to impact our quality of life moving forward. So
Good stuff lies ahead. Thank you, my friend, for taking time with us today. My guest has been Theresa Robinett. She is an occupational therapist. She teaches at Casper College, and she has a background in dementia care. We've been talking about all the latest technological advancements that are available for those caregivers of loved ones who are living with dementia. And we thank you for being with us on this edition of Once Again.
15 and a half.
Perfect. Thanks. Sorry about that, guys. I just had people knocking on my
Recording.
So hopefully we can just cut that out.
You've been watching Once Again, a YouTube video presentation of the University of Wyoming Center on Aging. We hope if you haven't done so already that you'll subscribe to the channel and hit that thumbs up like button. Both of those actions help the channel to grow and allow us to reach more people. And if you'll tap that notification bell, you'll be alerted each time we upload a new video. Thanks so much for being with us. I'm Scott Veach. We'll see you again next time.